Good Sunday morning, everyone. We're coming to you live. Well, kind of live for us, as this will be released later today. Sunday morning here at the EmpowerMAN Central. It's your boy Mikey G coming to you live from the free state of Florida. And this beautiful Sunday morning, as I have my Italian espresso roast representing my hometown of Poughkeepsie, New York, I am looking at the guy who's got the muscle with the hustle. His sizzle has zero fizzle. His favorite pizza is testosterone and provolone. He doesn't gauge prices, but the distance from the rifle to his target. He's the champion of the Second Amendment. He is the parent, the patriot, the friend, and the proud papa of two beautiful girls. It's my boy. It's your boy. He is a gift to the world. Greg A. Tedora, numero uno. Sir, I hope you're as caffeinated as I am, because I'm about 1 and maybe a 10th cup of coffee down. Need more.
I'm on my first, so I'm getting there. I know. It's still early, Mike.
Sorry,
it's still
folks.
Early.
I
still
apologize for this, folks. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Greg's got to step his game up.
I know. I will. It's still early, but I got a nice double cup in front of us. So, yeah, man. Good morning, and it's pouring here in the state of Connecticut. I won't give it an adjective, so you can fill in the blank yourself.
Does it start with the letter C?
It's one of them.
I'll go from there.
Okay.
I'll digress.
Yes, sir.
But we are up early, as we usually are. At EmpowerMAN, I always say, if you're going to beat me, you better get up earlier than I am. I always say that no one's going to ever outwork me in any of it ever I do. Well, if they do, God bless them. But at least, I'm doing my part. So Greg and I are always early risers. So it's kind of cool doing a podcast early on a Sunday morning. It's beautiful here.
It's pouring here. It's like Florida rain here.
Oh. You know the difference between Florida rain and Connecticut rain?
What's that?
Florida rain lasts like 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I think it's going to rain for like 3 days here. It's all right.
Well, Greg, you need to do your part, pal, and turn in that car and get something electric. Because you, my friend, you are destroying the climate. It's your fault that Connecticut's getting 3 days of rain.
It is true.
You need to gauge this, Greg. You have to gauge the environment, and you have to gauge these conditions.
Speaking of that, real quick, before we start, I was watching a documentary about, you ever hear of cloud seeding?
No.
Just when you have some spare time, cloud seeding. Have fun with that. It's a real eye-opener. Conspiracy theory, it's not. It's a real thing. Probably designed originally to be good, but certain people get their hands on it, do their spin, and here we go. It's not. My mom always said, it's not good to mess with Mother Nature. And I agree with that. And I'll leave it there. Look it up yourselves, everybody. Cloud seeding. Not good, in my opinion.
Proud words from the matriarch of the Tedora family. When
Yes.
Carol speaks, people listen.
Better listen.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
And before we begin, I'm going to do a shameless plug for 9 Line Clothing. And I decided to do something a little bit different today and try these natural cleansing bamboo pads. Now, I've been seeing this stuff online for the last 6 months about detoxing stuff from your feet. And, I actually did this years ago as I reflect back what brain cells I have left, or I actually put my foot in this type of solution when I was in the spa. And I saw all this crap come out of my feet. And, I was like, maybe there's something to this. And I put these on last night. And that's probably why I might have overslept a little bit this morning and texted you at 6:50 saying I'm running a little bit late. But, the pads work. You clean your feet, you put them on, you sleep with them. And I was expecting more because some of these commercials are really.
Yeah, they show the extreme, right?
Yeah. Surprisingly, there wasn't a lot that came out. Now,
you're clean, Mike. You're clean. You're cleansed.
Today might be a little bit different because I'm going on the boat at 12. So when I do this tonight, it might smell like a bottle of Miller Lite in the morning. But definitely worth trying here. These are called Bandu Natural Cleansing Pads.
I might give it a try. I've never done that, so I've always been curious.
It was $20 on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured, why not?
Yeah.
And also, as I take another sip of coffee, and as we do this podcast this morning, want to give a shout out to our men and women, policemen, firemen, our first responders, our EMTs. Thank you always for your sacrifice and your selflessness for keeping our local cities and towns and municipalities safe.
Absolutely. And I want to give a shout out, as always, to all of our military personnel, their families, for making the ultimate sacrifice. We thank you, and you are not forgotten. And speaking of that, real quick, if people haven't watched the latest Sean Ryan show, which everyone knows I'm a fan of by now, I've watched him since his first episode. He had one of the naval commanders on from the SEALs. So he was like the head executive officer for the SEALs during training. A SEAL died. It's a big controversial thing. And he died for certain reasons. And I'm not saying he's a bad dude or whatever, but they found PEDs in his car. Well, I'll just leave it at that. And they were not like from an American pharmacy. They were kind of the black market stuff. And he actually died of like acute pneumonia or whatever. He made it through Hell Week, but it caused a big problem. So they have all the evidence why, and they just hung the commander out to dry. And this is, it's like people know the story of Eddie Gallagher with the Navy SEALs, that they put him on trial and did all that. They sacrificed the heads, and it's disgusting to see, and it's disheartening. And then you add to that, it's the withdrawal from Afghanistan, which we'll get into again in more episodes in the future. More is coming out about that, and it's really sad to see that the heads of the military just hanging out, our elite soldiers, to dry and to take the fall on things that has nothing to do with them. It's disappointing, and I can see why the recruitment's down. And it's really, when it becomes political, it just gets super dirty, man. So shout out to him, and I hope he does well winning his case. So it's bad news.
Yeah.
Everyone wonders why all these guys that sacrificed and were so loyal to the country and to their specific branch that they served in, they want nothing to do with it now. It's crazy. It's the equivalent of, like, for you, like Derek Jeter, the ultimate Yankee, right? Or one of wanting nothing to do with the organization. Imagine that. It's wild, man. It's wild.
I often, when I see somebody wearing like a Desert Storm veteran or Vietnam veteran, I always go up to them and shake their hand and thank them for their service. And I encourage people that are listening, if you see a vet out there, it means the world to them, but we should also be thanking them, because without them, no matter what you believe in this country, you have a freedom and a right that not a lot of countries have. And we all need to be aware that things might change in the future, and that right you have currently may not be in existence a couple years from now. So we have to really take stock in our military and praise these men and women. And we need to, take stock of, hey, this generation, that generation, this generation, they all died so that we can have this platform.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I mean, it's becoming, kind of sad to see the state of affairs. But Greg, great plug.
Yeah, it's how I grew up with the visions and the thoughts of our military and our country and all that. It's completely turned in my head, and it's sad, because I thought one way, and the reality is it's really not. And I actually watched yesterday the trial of Saddam Hussein. Yeah, it was crazy. That was weird. And hearing the judge, like, rain down the charges on him, not saying he was a good dude. He's not, but we shouldn't have been there, my opinion. But the old white man's got to get richer. I'm done with all that. Let's move on.
And he's still around too, surprisingly. And I know exactly who we're talking about.
Yeah. It's
Mr.
crazy.
Cheney, Mr. Cheney and his Halliburton. Yeah.
People only know the surf. There's so many layers to Halliburton and sub companies, and man.
And it's funny. The reason why Trump is so vilified is that he's pretty much spot on, no matter what people think. And I'm, if I can heat for this, I don't really, I care, but I don't.
Yeah.
Trump is vilified because he's speaking the truth, and he's uncovered a lot of dirty deals. And these politicians can lose a ton of money, if Trump gets in, and but that's either near or there. That's a Woodford Reserve and Patreon discussion. But we are going to be having our good friend Corey back on, and our friend Ford back on, just in time for the election.
That's a great panel right there of guests. Because we are unbiased, in our last episode, we explained you can agree to disagree. It's all good. That's what this country's about. The real fabric of this country is about. Yeah. It's okay. You can think, up, and I can think down. It's all good. As long as we remember we're Americans and we have to, there are things bigger than our emotions and our feelings. Yeah.
I mean, I disagree with Corey on almost everything. Maybe a few things. But you know what? I'm looking forward to talking to Corey about the Knicks and the Jets.
Here's the thing. I grew up with Corey. I hung out with him daily. One of my childhood boys. I probably disagree with almost everything as well, but I like to hear a true debate because he will truly debate you and he will hit you with his facts, and that's all I ask. Yeah. There's no emotions. It's what he thinks and he believes in his facts, and he can articulate it in a way where he can have a debate. And Ford is a great counter to that because he too is a great speaker and can go facts to facts, and we can get to the nitty-gritty on certain things that people will dance around, and we'll hear both sides. And people can make their own decisions based on what they want to hear. That's the whole point of this.
That's right.
The last thing I'll say, this election, you always say it's very important. It is. And I don't care. I don't give a shit who you vote for. But do not vote from emotion, which is probably the majority of Americans nowadays. All this fluff and noise and celebrity singing at events, like, get that shit out of here. Vote without emotion. Vote for a specific thing backed by facts, whatever that may be. Keep the emotions out of it. When you make decisions based off emotions, it's usually not good, the result. And everyone suffers, including yourself. This is no different. This is bigger stakes.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah. Greggy T, when you talk.
It's sad. Makes me nervous. Makes me nervous.
Well, there's one cure for that, pal.
Coffee. More coffee.
The coffee man can, instead of the candy man, the coffee man. That's probably our generation. People that are younger probably don't even know who Sammy Davis Jr. is, but that's another story.
Nope.
Greggy T.
Yes, sir.
We're segueing. We're going to take what you just said because it's true. There's an enemy out there. You call it the saboteur. You often refer to it as a saboteur. I usually refer to it as the enemy. And today on EmpowerMAN, we're going to talk about knowing your enemy.
Yep.
Now, there's a lot of enemies. There's flesh and blood enemies. There's spiritual enemies. There's enemies of the state. There's enemies, right? Exactly. Right. Know your enemy. Yep. Everybody fights battles that we know nothing about. Right. True. We can meet a girl and she could project certain red flags. And instead of us judging, because we're so quick to judge as people in general, just to understand the other person, like, wow, man, like I really feel bad for this girl. She's going through so much. She must have so much inner turmoil. It comes out in her energy, right? People absorb that and pick up on that. I know you and I have both absorbed energies from members of the opposite sex, and it could be a detriment at times, right? So understanding your enemy, knowing what you're fighting. Greg,
Yeah.
in your life, do you know the enemies that you're fighting? Like the battles that you're going through that I don't know about, that the world doesn't know about, but just Greg Tedor knows about. Do you fully understand your enemy and what you're fighting against?
So that's a huge question. Like you said, there's so many different paths to zone in on a answer. But what I can say is, I hate saying this for the younger listeners, as you get older, you will get better at fine tuning what and who the enemy is. Sometimes it's not a person. Most of the time, it's not a person, if you ask me. Now that I'm older, I can, step outside from like a macro lens and look in. It's usually within yourself, which also has different layers. It stems from like childhood and what you and I talk about, like your baseline core values. That all plays into the emotional and mental. Those are two different things, enemies. So now I know for the most part who and what my enemies, because there's multiple ones, are. That being said, there's certain things you can do about some, and others you have no control of, and those are the hard ones to. We'll get to that later, but those are the hard ones to figure out, because there's nothing you can do when things are out of your power. It's very frustrating, and it can really get you in a bad place. You can't help it, because you can't. There's nothing you can do because it deals with somebody else. So.
Right. And you can only be responsible for how you respond to that person or that
And that's the
individual.
hardest thing sometimes, is to not respond probably how you should respond, because it's not going to be taken well. So that's very hard. It's a hard lesson.
I agree.
And you'll deal with that your entire life. Most people will.
Right. And knowing your enemies, does it help you think before you react or speak? Do you often pause?
Now it does. Now it does.
Mm.
Yes. Do I often pause? Now I do. Did I in the past? No. And it probably caused problems and got me in situations I shouldn't be in with certain people. But yes. What about you?
Yeah. Oh, I know the enemies I face. Fear, anxiety, depression.
Did
Not
you
so much
know that though
depression.
when you were younger, in your 20s or
No.
30s?
I knew
It's
in my
important for people to
20s.
understand that.
In my 20s, I didn't care. I mean, I didn't care until I was 29. So for me personally,
I agree.
I used alcohol as a way to kind of just suppress a lot of things, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I still was in shape. I still did my thing, but like,
Yeah.
When Friday, Saturday came, I hated Sundays. I used to hate Sundays. I used to drink so much on Saturday night that I would just be
I
incapacitated
mean,
on Sunday.
is it
Truthfully.
safe to say, and I agree with you,
No problem.
I mean, and I'll say we at certain times, we were just reckless to ourselves.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's dangerous. It's
Yeah, I
dangerous.
didn't care.
Nope.
I didn't care. You think you think you're going to live forever. Number one, when you're in your 20s, you think
Yeah.
nothing's going to happen to me, or you figure, that's all right. Let me just do this now because then I'll grow up in time. But I didn't realize at the time the enemy was invisible. It's the voices in your head, the saboteur. When we talk about relationships, yeah, an
Oof.
enemy came
Yeah.
in and sabotaged even relationships with my family. I just visited my family. I probably had the best visit with my mom I ever had
That's
because I was
awesome.
able to understand the enemy and understanding that there's whether it's Satan, whether it's devil, and whatever you believe in, whatever, like there's always going to be someone out there to try to sabotage your success.
Always.
It might be a person, it might be a thought, relationship wise, oh, you could do better, oh, she's got like nose hair, or like whatever, like there'll be something that's gonna like sabotage you. You could have,
Mm-hmm.
and I did this with a few people where I always thought the grass was greener on the other side. I never settled because I was like, but that was an enemy, and I understood my enemy, and now I know what I face, especially being isolated, right? When you're work for yourself and you're not around a lot of people, the enemy or my enemy always attacks me when I'm alone. Like when I was home, I was good, right? But as soon as I got back to my apartment last night, all the things of all the behaviors I'll I'll use to compensate. And we have a very special guest coming up, which would be really cool. We'll talk more about that towards the latter part of our episode today.
Yeah.
And figure out, strategies to combat that enemy that you'll probably expound upon. But yeah, I mean, once you self-reflect, once you take stock of your life, and once you understand, like, wow, like, I've been hearing these voices that don't exist. Like, fear's not knocking on my door. Fear is implied. Like, what's going on in the country right now? Everyone's fearful of what could happen. Here's what you got to do, right? You got to put the blinders on. You got to stay in your lane and just put your head down and do the work. Take it day by day, and whatever happens, happens, right? It's not be paralyzed by, I can't do this because we might turn this way. Well, guess what? If we turn that way, start now stocking up on food and water and the basic necessities, right? Just we've talked about this, and you're really good at this, putting together a plan, taking preventative action, so that if, let's just say in a couple of years from now, they say, Greg, you can only buy 2 rolls of toilet paper at a clip. You already have 80 rolls in stock, right? Because you've been preparing for this for a couple of years. So, long-winded explanation. Yes, I do.
Yeah. Yep.
With enemies, Greg, there's often, enemies provide or produce adversarial relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm sure you've had a few.
Mm-hmm.
Day.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe something currently. I'm just saying. Can you provide an example? Allegedly. Can you provide an example of an adversarial relationship that you've had in your life? And how did you handle that?
So, and I'll pivot on this one and say I'll use an example where it's not a specific person, but an adversarial relationship might be, oh, poor me, the victim. That's a huge adversarial relationship that I think safe to say, in my opinion, most people deal with that. Some deal with it more than others or larger than others, but I think it creeps into everybody at some point. Like, oh, why doesn't this go my way? Or, it's poor me, poor me, poor me. That's a huge, almost daily for a lot of people, adversarial relationship. And if you're looking for a job, you can't get a job, and you get down, you're letting it defeat you and change your whole outlook, and it can nosedive real quick. And you can get in a deep, deep, deep hole where now you're not productive, and now you're not a good person to be around, and it'll spiral. And I think that you're going to put that energy out. Nothing good's going to come back with that. And now you're in like a real deep, dark place. Like you said, people pick up on energy. They're not going to want to be around that. And now you got to work 5 times as hard just to get back out to level ground. Forget going back up. That's a long climb. So that's a thing that I've dealt with, where it's because it's always quick to be like, oh, nothing ever goes my way. It's like almost normal. If it's a fleeting moment, cool, no problem. Like, say it and let it go out. It's fine. And don't bring it back in. But maybe take note that you said that and be like, oh, okay, let me snap out of this. But like you said, the self-reflection, I think most people don't want to do because they're not going to be happy with what they see, because that means they have to be accountable and they have to do certain things to be accountable. And most people are lazy nowadays, and everything is set up against that, like social media, for example, everything. And the whole victim mentality, my point for using this example is, nowadays it's okay, and it's almost okay to be a victim, and they allow it to be something that it shouldn't be. They give it a platform and they give it an audience. One of the things Freddie T always used to say to me, like, don't give somebody an audience. Don't give it an audience if you don't want it to grow, or if you don't want it to keep going. Just don't talk about it. No airtime. Eventually it'll stop if you don't give it airtime. You got to put that seal on it, that airtight seal, and it'll die in there, and then you're fine. But it's hard, and people nowadays don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks they're perfect, or they're chasing perfection. Nothing's perfect. You'll never be perfect. Nobody's perfect.
That's right.
No situation is perfect. No relationship is perfect. I'm not saying relationship can't be fucking awesome or great, but it's not perfect. So it's a tough battle. That one little thing is a tough thing that can spiral, and then it can spiral on all different aspects of your life, from relationships, friendships, family, job, money, health. It all comes down the pipeline from that one adversarial relationship that you let get out of control. And then the year goes by, and then fucking 10 years goes by, and now it's a decade of depression. It's exponentially could be a problem, and it compounds very quickly.
And what's the first thing people will do when you're depressed? Not people, but like what's the antidote for depression in these days?
Oh, it's just go on meds.
Go on meds.
Go on meds so they can make their money on the back end. It's basically just getting you hooked. It's the old basic drug deal. It's all it is. It's just legal, Mike. It's legal drug deal. You know, you give them a taste, they get hooked, and now you have a client for either years or life. You make your money. Now they think in their head they need that, and there you go. Great business model. Great business model.
And let's be clear, right? Like, we're not saying that all medicine is bad.
Of course. There's legit.
So don't misconstrue that.
Please don't, because I don't mean it like that, and the people that know me don't. But certain people need certain things. I'm not saying that, but it's the people that don't try first. Give it a legit try.
Yeah.
Without it, like, it should be last resort. You should try all roads before just throwing a fucking pill at it.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree, and you're spot on.
But people don't like hearing that. I get a lot of heat for that. But you're not listening to what we're saying. We're not saying there's situations where people need it. Cool. That's why it was designed, I think. It helps. If it helps you when you're at like rock bottom and you've tried everything, awesome. Cool. But people don't want to put work in. People want to put the work in. They want that quick fix. And as more generations come up, that's normal to them. Everything is wild. There's a pill for everything. You drink too much coffee, there's a medication.
More coffee.
Take this, take that. It's insane, man. Meanwhile, all these conditions are popping up from the side effects of all this shit. Wait till this. I said it before. I can't wait. Wait till this Ozempic shit. Just wait. It's crazy. People are going to get fucked up from this.
It's nuts. And, one thing I've learned over the last 3.5 years is, my pastor says, this is a woman pastor at my church who's phenomenal. And she's been kind of like a mentor to me. She's awesome, man. She deals with like grief share. So she takes on people that have lost relatives, sick people. Like I don't know how you absorb that type of energy. It takes a special person to do that.
I was going to say, thank God for people like that. That's rough.
When my friend Myra died, I went right to her group because I didn't want to be alone that day. And that was like,
I remember you said that. I remember that.
Just watching her deal with I just didn't want to be alone. I sat in the group, and it was just like watching her deal with these people. I was like, holy smokes, man, that was phenomenal. But she always said the gospel, right? We all know gospel, but she changed the suffix of gospel to gospel, meaning that, like, for me, like reading the Bible has always been, kind of like therapeutic in a way. And when you look at an adversarial relationship that I've had, there's a list of people. I could probably write a book.
I have a scroll, dude. It just keeps going.
But you've learned to pray for those people. And I find that it works. And it's an ironic story that a person that I held like some resentment towards we started communicating again. It was actually really cool because I pray for this person every day. And, Luke talks about, the gospel of Luke talks about pray for those that, hurt you, bless those that curse you. I'm paraphrasing, but, it's one of those things where it's like, hey, man, you can wish somebody well from a distance. And it's kind of sounds weird at first. I'm like, well, why would I want to wish somebody well that is causing me so much pain? But, it's kind of like they could be causing you pain because you're so angry at that person. You want them to suffer, but you're the really one that's suffering. So it's like, how do we release that type of suffering? How do we release that type of angst? Because honestly, that type of inner anger is such a waste of energy and it's a waste of time. And then you get tired and you just want to sleep. It's like letting go. Hey, listen, you know what? I had an issue with this person. I pray for those people. I hope they're having a great life. And if you do it over time, slowly but surely, that kind of it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. That's how
I
we
give you credit. I can't do that. I'm not there. For certain people. Certain people.
right. And deservedly so. But we talked about knowing your enemy. We talked about
Yep.
adversarial relationships because it kind of a symbiotic relationship, right? If you have an
Mhm.
envy, it's going to be an adversarial relationship.
Yep.
But you often wonder, like, what drives people to act the way they do? Like, Greg, why do you think people act in such a way that we have these adversarial relationships and people want to cause pain to others?
So, two answers to that. I don't know why certain people act and do what they do towards other people. It blows my mind, especially the people that like go out of their way to hurt somebody, not physically, but emotionally, mentally, financially. I don't understand people like that because I'm not wired that way. But it leads me to everyone's wired different from birth.
Mm,
You can have the shittiest parents and they end up having like the best kid,
mm,
and you have the best parents end up having the shittiest kid.
mm,
It's how you're wired from God or earth or whatever. So you're already wired the way you're wired, and then you have your upbringing, whatever that looks like. So you have that path that we spoke about. You have certain core values. Some people have more, some people have less, some people have none. So you add all of that in your timeline of growing up, and you always go back to your default of how you're wired, in my opinion. When you get older and you're tuned in and tapped in and did the work, you can figure that out why you act a certain way. And you can use the tools that you've gained along the way from the people that help you to use that as an advantage. Even if it's a negative reaction, you can use that as an advantage. Takes a long time and a lot of work. But I, emotions they're not a bad thing. Everyone, they make little kids books to teach kids about emotions. There's an emotion in there. It's anger. There's nothing wrong with anger. It's just another emotion, but it's given such a negative, connotation and a stigma to it where, oh, they're angry. I'm reading a book to my little girls and anger is in it so they can understand it. Why can't adults understand it? There's a book for a 2-year-old to understand it. So that's just an example. But it's what you do with how you're wired. Somebody's first emotion in a situation might be anger. At least you know that about yourself, and you can, okay, and let me cool off for 5 minutes and then, dissect the problem and get to my solutions instead of being in that original state and making decisions off that. It's the same thing with, it goes back to what I said about voting. You want to vote emotional. You want to vote for who's the best person for the job at hand. I don't care who that person is. If I need an operator on a construction site, I want the best operator for that machine. I don't care if they have long hair, short hair, no hair, blue eyes, brown eyes, black, white. I don't give a shit. I want the best operator, and that's how it should be for, running the country. That's a sorry side note, but getting back to this goes back to what I originally said when we started. I don't know why, and I don't know what drives certain people to cause pain or inflict negativity on somebody else. But you can't control what that person does, thinks, says. You gotta let, like you said, now you gotta let it go and just focus on you. Do you what you can control, control. But it's the hardest thing, and I am not good at it, to let that go or don't let it consume you, because what you said earlier rings true. It's so much negative emotions. They're not even your emotions. So why would you carry all that? It's a lot of weight. It's a lot of weight to carry, and it's not your weight. Carry your own weight.
right.
And
But
it's from somebody that's not good at it. At least I'm aware of it, but I'm not good at it. So it helps a little bit, but it's hard. When someone treats you like
you
shit,
know,
it's hard to deal with that. because naturally you might not be a person that does that. So you're like, wow, how could somebody do this to somebody? I would never. And then you get that's all you think about, and you'll never know you're not that person. And you got to let that go and just focus on you.
And that's why community is important. Having you always, good group of friends or like a spot, like whatever it is that you
It's
have.
key. That is
you need
key. What Mike says is so true. You need, I don't care if it's one person or 5 people, I don't care. You need a community, no matter what that looks like, because it's going to be your saving grace for your mental state. I know we talk about this all the time, and people are going to take this the wrong way. I can see why people go postal. I can see why people do some bad things we've seen on the news. I'm not agreeing with it, but I understand it, because they don't have that outlet. They don't have that support system or the mental capabilities of letting things go that aren't controlled. Like, you get fired from a job, you go to because your boss is a dick, and you go and you kill people. I'm not saying I agree, but I understand when you're hurt and you're a good employee and you gave it all, and you just have some like dickhead or like the son of the owner treat you like shit. I get it. I'm not saying you should do that, but you really, really need a community. People laugh at that word. They brush that off like, yeah, whatever. It is a vital part of being able to move on in a positive way. You have to have it. And if you don't have it, find it. Community like you, it's a million. It could be CrossFit. It can be childhood friends. It can be a hobby, and you meet certain like-minded people. Anything. But you got to do it.
Yeah, you put that so well, man. I can only add a little bit to that is when as much as society is trying to take God out of the equation, I'm going to go back to God, because it's written in the Bible. One person can't fight a battle alone. 2 people, now we're talking. A triple braided cord is hard to break, and that comes straight out of the Bible. So when you've got 2 people, it's awesome. Look at us. Look at our core group, right? It's not just me and you, it's our other buddies. So it's like now we've got you and I can fight a lot of things, but now we've got our friends. Now that bond is hard to break. So, if you start with just one person, and then you grow that community, or like you like to use the term ecosystem, you create that ecosystem. Now we're talking. Now we can fight these enemies that we can see and can't see. So Greg, that was a great explanation.
And part of that community is getting checked. People don't want to check their friends anymore.
Nope.
And getting checked is not a bad thing. Yeah, it sucks because they're telling you something you don't want to hear. Usually people just ask like, oh, how do I look? Do I look good? Yeah. You look good. No, you look like shit. You look like shit. Sometimes you need people to tell you that, to snap you out of whatever funk you're in, because people just want to hear what they want to hear. That's not true friendship, in my opinion.
Right.
Like, like if you're doing something wrong, you're doing something wrong. They definitely know you're doing something wrong, but they're like, it's okay. You're okay. Like, no, you're fucking up. That's it. You're fucking up.
Yeah.
That's like our group will do that in a second. But that's a good thing, because it holds everybody to the same accountability, which is good.
Yeah, and it might be awkward to speak open and honestly around people, especially when But first you got to come from a place of love, and you can't just come be like, "Yo, Greg, what are you doing?" It's just got to be like, it's just got to come from a place of caring. Like like when we talk about things, it doesn't come from a mean. It comes from a place of like caring, and like when my friends talk, I listen. Sometimes I didn't always listen.
Me neither. Yeah.
But you know what? After that's 25 years I've known you. Let's see, my 46, so almost 25 years. Things are starting to resonate. So
yeah.
Hi, Greg. So we talked about a lot of things so far, Greg. But I mean, what do you think as guys, right? What do you think the battles that we fight? What are the battles that men fight often? Like what do you think are the most common battles that men fight, daily, or challenges they face?
Nowadays, it's a different landscape than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And that has nothing to do with age. That's just the time of the world.
Mm.
Guys are fighting themselves, which is everything we just spoke about. They're fighting a culture, not only in the country, they're fighting a bad culture in the country because everybody's against a real man nowadays, even though they need them. They'll never admit that. And they're fighting like a world culture it's against a real man. These things are big battles to guys that have traditional mindset. And I don't mean an archaic, chauvinistic mindset. That's not what I'm saying. When I say traditional, I mean provider, protector, like lover, like all of that. And I don't mean provider financially. That's not what I mean. I can't believe I have to explain these words because people nowadays just go in a different direction, but I have to. And I think they battle daily the divisiveness that has been created in this world and this country.
That's a big word, divisiveness. Very good.
Coffee. So but that's a real thing. Just go on Instagram for 10 minutes. It's guy versus girl. It's body count. It's this. It's I don't need a man. Like it's just so it comes at if you allow it, it can come at you 24/7. And that's about I choose not to fight that battle. I don't really care about that. I just want to do me and that's it. But when you're young, that's hard. There's so much pressure on young kids nowadays and young men, and certain things are normalized now that I think shouldn't have been normalized. And it's a dangerous, we're already there. It's not a dangerous path. We're in it now.
Yeah.
It's a problem, and it's a tough battle. It really is. It's coming at you from all. Turn on the news, turn on social media, turn on anything, any marketing. I challenge anybody. Watch TV for 10 minutes. I don't care what platform you're on. Count the men you see. The real men you see in advertisements. That's against you too. I get a lot of heat for saying that. But yet when I ask, do you know what I mean? They're like, yeah, I can see it. Like, oh, okay. I'm not crazy. But we fight with all that. That toxic masculinity was a problem. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not talking extreme where it's, detrimental to a woman or society. That's not what I mean. But you need masculinity just like you need femininity. You need both. You need that balance. There's nothing wrong with being masculine. There's nothing wrong with being feminine. Nothing. But why polarize that now? Because it creates a whole subcategory of people that will continue the conversation. It's just, and no one gets it. Oh, you're extreme, or oh, you're just, fear mongering, or this or that. Just truly take a step back, compartmentalize your emotions for a second, and just look at it for what it is. I don't get it. I don't get it.
You and me both, pal. You and me both.
Most of these men nowadays can't protect their woman. They can't. Last year, our friend Gary and I went to a concert, and Madison Square Garden, and it was at night, so it gets a little sketch down there. Nice little crowd outside, like Penn Station, and walking to the car, and there was a woman about our age, and her friends like went one way and she went another to her car, and I noticed, because Gary's on point, like both of us know what's going on. He's very situationally aware, like I am, and I noticed her for 3 blocks, like pretty much staying close to us, but going in our direction. So I just stopped. I go, "Where are you going?" And she's like, "My car's on." I forgot. I parked in our old hood, like 55th and 8th. And so we were walking from 33rd up 8th Avenue, and there's some sketchy blocks there, man. A real problem. And I don't care what anybody says. And I can take care of myself, and you better be aware, because it gets weird. And I was like, "You walk with us then. Walk with us. You shouldn't be alone." And she thanked us. But that's a man. That's what should be done, in my opinion.
We did that before. You and I did that before with that one girl
All
that got really hammered, and we got her back into Manhattan, and we put her in a cab, and you know, I mean, girls are. I mean, look, I don't want to go off. I'm
I
going to go
know,
off
I
topic for
know.
1 second, but girls, if you're listening, be smart. Like, like girls face so many more challenges than we'll ever face. And I think about the glory days of living in Manhattan when I used to sleep on the subway and I could walk from my apartment to Madison Square Garden and not have an issue.
Zero
Or I would
issues.
take the D train from Yankee Stadium back to my apartment, 4
Hmm.
stops at 10:30 at night, just blitzed that in my mind. Now, well, no, thank you.
No way, man.
No, thank you. Greggy T, you mentioned these battles that men face. Is it okay for a guy to lose a battle? Is it okay if a guy loses a battle? Like, if let's just say like you're fighting something, and let's just say like I don't know, anger got the best of you.
Hmm.
You sit there and beat yourself up, or just say, you know what, I'm going to win the war. This was a lesson learned, and I'm going to take this for future confrontations.
Yeah, I think it's okay to lose maybe temporarily for the greater good, which is the long term win, which would be in your case, what you just said, like your emotions or whatever. Like you lose the battle, no problem. And you could be upset about that, no problem. But move on. It's like an athlete. Like you lose a game. Yeah, it sucks. And you can figure out why and only try to get better. But the best athletes, no matter what sport, they move on. That's in the past. And I'm going to get better at what I wasn't good at in that game. And that game is now history. And they have to move forward. Same thing with this. It is okay to lose temporarily, but don't lose sight of the greater picture, which is always bettering yourself and improving on your abilities.
With these battles and wars and enemies and all this talk of combat, right? Because it's a battle, right? It's a battle every day that people go through, I go through, you go through.
Mhm.
Um, where do you think these enemies tend to come from? Like, where do you think like the origins? Think about all the wars that we fought as a nation, right? We knew where our enemies came from. But the battles
Huh.
that you and I face every day, where do you think these enemies tend to come from? Like,
I think most of them are in our own head, if I can speak openly. If you look at it, mostly, I don't want to say they're made up because there is substance there, but we allow it to grow in our heads and we make it sometimes bigger than it should be or has to be. So there's that. But then there's legit other people, which we spoke about. You can't control what they do, and they're an enemy because they either treat or do things bad to you. So you have two. So try to work on the ones you can control, which are the ones you make up in your head, to lower that. And so when people do come in your life that cause problems or battles, you have a clearer head and you can focus on that because that's more of a tangible, that's a real battle, it's a real problem instead of a made up, fabricated, or indulged one in your own head. Like sometimes I may think something is a 10
mhm,
and I speak to you or somebody else. And after speaking with that, it's like, it's really a 2. It's not that big of a
right,
deal.
right.
That's huge. That's huge because that goes from almost all hands on deck mental battle to, oh, it's really not a big deal. And then, you can sweep it away. That's huge to do that because that goes back to the support system. If you didn't have that, now you have a indulged 10 in your head and now you're carrying that and they attract, they're like magnets, man. You'll get more and more and more. And it's usually not that real, these problems. It's a temporary thing.
Yeah. And looking at a macro level, all these things that we've just discussed, we'll put it more in a worldly sense.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, here's a good one. Do you think there is currently an enemy in the world today, man, woman, child, an enemy that does not discriminate? Do you think there's an enemy in the world right now that we are, as a whole, we are fighting right now?
Yes. I don't know how to label it, but yes. I think worldviews and society, I know that's a weird label to put on it, because it's not a specific person, it's a group of people, but it's the power, the real people or the real group of people that hold the power. Politics is a facade. Those are just elected people. That's like you got to go behind the curtain, and then you got to go behind that curtain. You got to go to who owns the theater. That's the problem. Who owns the theater?
I like that one.
But that's dangerous ground. And we see people like everyone thinks, other countries are bad and that we are not a good country. We do just as shady and we are just as corrupt, if not more than the others. And we too make people disappear. And look at some whistleblowers in our own country. They're not here anymore. What do you think happened?
They're on an island somewhere?
Sure. It's but no one wants to talk about that, which I understand. But no one wants to believe that actually is happening and has happened. Not, oh yeah, no, that's happened. And that's the battle, I think, but that's on a whole different level. So I think there is, I don't know, just everything now is politicized. That's a problem. They can take anything now and make it polarizing. I mean, anything. Anything. It could be an object, the Olympics, the opening ceremonies. Like, it's sports. Just leave it like that. You don't have to politicize everything. But that's the culture now that's been created. I'm sorry, I don't see any good that's coming out of that right now. It's only getting worse and worse and worse. That's what we're fighting.
Yeah.
And you can believe what you want. If you notice, I didn't say you shouldn't believe in this or you do. That's not what I'm saying. People can agree to disagree, but at the end of the day, we should want what's best for our country.
You would think, right?
You would think.
The book of James talks about, and I've mentioned this on several podcasts, wherever there's jealousy and self-ambition, you'll find evil and disorder. And there's a lot of self-ambition in politics. It's just the way it is.
Follow the money.
There are people that are making money off of us as we speak that we vote for. You'd like to think there are there's a misinterpretation of how things work. Our elected leaders work for us. We don't work for them. But somewhere along the line that got misconstrued. Yeah. I think the enemy we're fighting is spiritual. I think when you start taking the Pledge of Allegiance out of schools, you take God out of the vernacular of our country, you're seeing this open borders, this recklessness spending, this social strife. Like, whether people believe in God or not, that's on you. I can just say what I believe. And if you go back through time, everything that's going on in this world is written in the Bible. If you don't believe me, just pick up and start reading it. Just pick up and start reading it. Everything that is happening right now has been written 2024 years ago, right? Or even before that. So I think, again, as people, we need to get together. I think you're seeing like a surgence, not a resurgence, but a surge in people that are turning to Christ and God for just comfort and realizing whether they're, I don't know, not however you want to, convenient Christians or whatever it might be. If you believe, and that's great because it's one person.
Fair weather Christians, just flavor of the month.
Flavor of the month.
Plenty of them.
But you said it best, Greg. Don't try to be perfect. Like, do I believe in God? Absolutely. Do I make mistakes? More than people realize. But you know what? Like, I keep trying. And if I try and you try, the next person tries. Now you're creating a community of people that are making an effort to become better. So I think, as a whole, we're fighting a spiritual battle. And you're seeing that, especially with the way things are going. You see TV. I don't watch much of it. The lies that are espoused and people believing it. So again, that's a whole other topic. But Greg, with all the stuff going on in the world, you've got two little girls that are just bright-eyed and innocent and just see the world with awe and amazement. How do you protect your children from these enemies?
What I try to do is, number one, set a good example. It starts with reacting when they do something bad or something happens, it's all how you react. So you set that layer, like the base layer, and you love them and you treat them a certain way and you show them good, no matter, because they're gonna see not good when they go to school or they go on a play date, and you're like, where did they learn that from? They didn't learn that from me. They're sponges. They absorb everything from everybody, and which you can't control outside things. What you control is in house. So they know when they're with me, they're safe, there's structure, there's discipline, and there's fun, and there's love. So I try to give them tools, and it's you can see it as they get older. They just turn 3 and 5, so they're still very young. But now, when they do something naughty, you try not to laugh because it's funny, but you just you don't yell. You talk to them calmly and you say, listen, it's all about choices. I always say you got to make the right choice. Choices have consequences. Do you think that was a good choice? And they're like, no. I'm like, it wasn't. So next time, let's not do that. And it's a softer approach to discipline, because not every kid reacts to like the hard, don't do that or don't do that. Like, that doesn't really teach anything, in my opinion.
Right.
You got to show them and lead. So if you're saying like, oh, don't cry or don't yell at your sister or they're being, if you do all those things, but you're telling them not to, it doesn't carry any weight, your words. Your words only mean something when they see it in action. When they react to something they don't like, instead of crying, like, okay, let's take a deep breath, relax. What's the problem? Let's talk about it. Let's figure out a solution. With little kids, you're doing that 1,000 times a day. It gets redundant after a while and kind of annoying. But the greater picture is, now they don't react. Now they'll take a step back and be like, so my little one, learning how to put her shoes on by herself and all that, which is a big deal because she puts the left on the right on the left. And it's like, what are you doing? So she's having a hard time with a set of shoes. She starts crying naturally because they want help. Why are you crying? My shoes, my shoes. I'm like, do you need help putting your shoes on? Yes. Okay. Instead of crying, just ask me or your sister, can you help me with your shoes? Enough time saying that. Now she'll just be like, can you help me put these shoes on? There it is right there. Gave her the tools, set an example, followed through in repetition. Now it's not a problem anymore. So it's just teaching them and giving them tools, but you can only do that by literally living the example. Words don't mean shit to kids. They have to see it and feel it and know, oh, daddy does what he says. No problem. They got to see words. Oh, don't yell, don't cry, don't do that. Just save your breath, because they're going to do that until you show them differently.
Right.
So you have to teach them the skills and the communication, which is big for what we're talking about. Is something bothering you? Does something hurt? Like, what are you feeling? Like, let's talk about it. Having that open communication is, I think, the critical tool for a little kid. Because if you can get them young, opening up to you, they'll open up to you later on. You're not going to get in trouble. Just be honest and we'll figure out. Daddy's here to help. I will help you. But I can't help you unless you tell me what's going on. And that's the lesson now for the 5-year-old. Like, talk to me. What's going on? What do you need? What can I do to help? And she knows from the past now, I help her with everything. So I set the example and she knows daddy will help. Daddy will fix. I can talk to him. So you gotta give them tools.
I love it, man.
And shelter them a little bit. I'm not saying be a helicopter parent or don't expose them to things that they shouldn't be around, but they need to know that's not good over there. Stay away from that.
Right.
And then when you get older, you'll understand, and you talk to them like they see a bum on the street in Manhattan or whatever. Like, why is that person dirty or whatever? Listen, he probably made some bad choices, maybe some unfortunate circumstances. We don't know. But that's why it's important and just a quick pivot. That's why it's important to make the right choices, and then they focus on that, because their attention span's like 40 seconds. So you have a 40-second window to teach something.
What weapons do you use, Greg, to fight the battles that you're going through?
Just my brain now. It's the only thing. Is just think. and educate and read. Just arm yourself with more information. That's all you can do. There's no weapon that can legally get rid of an enemy or a problem. You gotta use your brain, but you gotta feed it. You gotta fuel it with information and facts,
Right.
not just ideas and false senses and false thoughts that don't exist, just to spin your own narrative. There's no good that can come out of that. It's like anything else. You want a good body. What do? You work out and you train a certain way. You got to train your brain too, and you got to educate and read.
Right. And that's the big adjective you use is train. Like you got to put work in, right?
Yeah.
If you want to fight these battles, you can't just take a pill or you can't just say, oh, well, I'm going to do this today, but the rest of the other days, it's a daily practice and, get into good habits. And whatever it is, you use to educate yourself or you use to protect yourself against this, the enemies that we all face and the battles we face, you got to put the work in and you got to train. And it's just the mental muscle is just as important as the other muscles in your body.
If you look at successful people that you emulate or strive to be, I'm going to safely assume 99% of them put some work in somewhere along the way. They put the
100%.
work in and the
100%.
results follow. You can't show me somebody that's successful, ultra successful in any sense of life that didn't put any work in. No way. No way.
Yeah.
Real work. That's another thing.
Yeah.
Not these false psychics and mediums and all that. I'm not shitting on that industry, but there's a lot of snake oil out there now. And every Tom, Dick, and Harry has that, those letters after their name or whatever. It doesn't mean they're good. So we talked about that in the past. So whatever.
Yeah.
It's like a trendy thing now. It's a talking point. I'm in therapy. Like, okay. How's that going, by the way? I've been in therapy 30 years. How's that going? Just saying there should be an end date. Anyway.
I remember therapy used to be something you kept under the rug back when you never told. Now everyone's like, because it goes back to, I think, the victim. Everyone's a victim. I'm not saying everyone that goes to therapy is a victim. Yes, they're a victim of some circumstance, no doubt.
Yeah.
But when it becomes more, I guess, advertised,
I was just gonna say.
I'm a victim.
I was just gonna say that.
Okay, great. You can choose to live in that space or do something about it. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't post your battles to help someone else, but when you do it for your own validation, that's the problem.
Absolutely right, and you took the words out of my mouth. That's right. It's not an outfit you wear. Oh, look at me! Like no. But
What do you think, Greg? I'm a victim.
I went to therapy today. It was so good. I got my star, but it's sorry. That's wrong. It's wrong, and it's not cool. It's not cute. It's actually diluting the quality. And you know what I'm going to say? Go say that to somebody that's really in therapy and watch their reaction because they're going to get fucking pissed. And they should get pissed, and they have the right to get pissed because they're doing it for real. You're doing it for optics, and that's disgusting.
That's the big word. The optics.
Disgusting. And real people know you're a piece of shit for doing that.
And you notice too, like any successful person, at least we were growing up, they kind of went back to the Bible, right? Never know what never tell your right hand what your left hand's doing. Do your stuff in private so that ultimately the guy upstairs will reward you. Guys like Trump, for example, you'll never know how much good he did because a little bit comes out. But guys like Trump don't want credit. George Steinbrenner is a perfect example. Of course, I'm wearing a Yankee hat. He did things that we'll never know, but he did it in private. Didn't want the attention. Now, if I do something, I got to tell the whole world how great I am. If you do great things, people will pick up on your greatness.
So, yes, I agree.
So.
I agree 99% of that. I don't think, yes, I like keeping the cards close to the vest. I like that. And I'm a firm believer in that. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying like, and I know you didn't say this, but like, I'm in therapy. Okay, fine. But leave it at that. That's for you. It's for nobody else. But people now, like I said, it's a talking point. It's optics. Like, oh yeah, no. The real people that put the work in, it's here with them. Like, don't show your hand.
Right.
Don't show your hand. There's nothing wrong with saying you're in therapy, But no one needs to know the details. That's for you.
But people crave validation, and
Crave it. Crave it.
we
It's
can
like a
go down
drug
another
to them.
road. It is.
They're addicted to that. They're addicted to the likes and the follows and the attention. It's insane. If they put half as much time into doing something positive or good, everything would be different. But they won't do it.
No, and to be real, most people do it for their own edification.
Of
They
course.
do. They don't do it for the good of to help others. Like we do this because we feel that we're talking about real things that aren't
Yeah.
talked about.
No.
Like we put our lives out there, and we're just two
Mhm.
regular people. But if we
Yeah.
can help other people, then we've made an impact, right? I
Of
don't
course.
need validation, or I don't need
No.
like, oh, this or that. It's like,
No.
wow, man. It's like it's nice to know like there are two guys that are going through it, and we create that community or like the
Yeah.
relatability, and that's the whole purpose, right?
Of course.
Greg, wrapping this up because we could talk about this for hours. This has
Yeah.
been phenomenal. You've dropped a lot of great nuggets on us, but I want
So
you
have
to take
you.
us home. All right, you're the Sandman on top of everything else. Did your shoulders just get bigger?
No.
Oh, jeez. It's like, my God, I thought my eyes were, jeez.
I
How
can't even
else?
feel them right now.
My neck is pretty shot.
I'm still sore from that workout, dude.
Ooh, that was vicious. How else can men equip themselves to fight these battles? Like, what other avenues or what other weapons or tools or however you want to call it, what other things can men take to fight these battles? If you can think of
Testosterone. No, I'm just kidding.
that is a
What
great weapon.
it is, what men, in my opinion, need to do is take care of themselves mentally and physically.
Mhm.
They need to know their weaknesses,
Mhm.
know what you're not good at. And I don't mean physically all the time. I mean, know your crutches, know what you're not good at, and just work on that a little bit. If you're quick to react or you have a temper, work on that. All right. And obviously, double down on your strengths. Yes, we know that. But put the work in on getting smarter, feeling better. You need that confidence. Nobody's going to give you confidence. You shouldn't live for validation from other people. You shouldn't be in a relationship because your happiness is from that other person. No. You need to work on yourself, get your head right. And in order to do that, it's sharpen your brain, get smart, read, get in good shape, eat good. And I'm not saying don't indulge. We all know my problem with fucking sugar and stuff. So you can indulge in stuff, but get your group of people, whatever that looks like. I don't care if it's one person, 5 people, 10 people, but don't waver for anybody or anything. If you believe in something, stay there. Stay there. Be open minded and listen, but don't be swayed because you want to be in the norm or you're afraid of losing your job or you're afraid you might not get this account. I understand you need money and all that stuff, but at what cost is your mental state or your being for fitting in? You gotta get confident with yourself, and the battles you fight will get easier. And it's everything is against men's confidence right now. Everything. Everything. And you have to sharpen your sword. You have to. That'll help with everything. You got to have confidence. You're not going to get confidence by putting no work in. It's not going to happen. Not cocky, confidence.
Love it. I love it.
Train your brain
Train your brain.
and contain your emotions and work on the negative.
That's tough. That's a tough one.
It's the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing. And it's okay to not be, you're not going to be perfect. You might have a good long streak of being good. You're going to fuck up or there's going to be a situation where you're going to kind of revert back. That's fine. That's fine. Just now try to go longer than you did the previous time. Oh yeah. Guilty.
Guilty as charged.
Which is fine. Take note of it and go a longer streak this time. And that's a win in my book. And learn from it.
I agree.
And if you don't want to conform to what's normal or whatever, don't do it. And if you don't like certain advertising, if you don't like certain social media, then don't go on it. Don't go on it. It's that simple. What do you get from Instagram? If it's not used for business or whatever, it's entertainment. But no, it's entertainment. It's not gospel. It's not law. It's actually not real, most of it.
Most of it is not real.
Most of it is not real.
I agree.
But that's okay. That's called entertainment. That's like The Lion King isn't real. It's a movie. It's like a cartoon. That's fine. It is what that is. Same thing with what you're putting in your body. If you continue the garbage in, you're just making your life that much harder, and your ability to overcome struggle that much harder.
Agreed.
So, yeah.
Greggy T, this is an awesome conversation, man.
Mm-hmm.
Some really good stuff for a Sunday.
Yeah. It's a hard one.
It's a hard one.
But it's a real one.
It's a real one. It's a hard one. And I'll tell you what makes these conversations better.
Coffee.
And I'm feeling a gravitational pull towards my grinder as we speak. I'm fighting it right now. I know the enemy I'm fighting, and that's coffee, but I'm going to happily lose this battle. So, Greggy T, before we close, where can people find you if they want some coaching guidance on real estate, or if they just want to have a conversation with you?
You can find me on the floor at the Slipknot concert, because that was awesome, by the way. They crushed it.
No kidding.
Forever Progress on Instagram, foreverprogress.com, any of that. Hit me up, private message me. It's all good. You can go to our website, EmpowerMAN Podcast. You can go to EmpowerMAN Podcast on Instagram, YouTube, all of that. Hit that button. It helps the algorithms. We are gaining traction. We have some really exciting things in the pipeline. Can't really speak about some of them yet legally, but a lot of things. We're going to go back. We're going to go to a bi-weekly format. So we're going to be releasing this today, but our next one is in 2 weeks. So we're going to do every other Sunday now because of all the behind the scenes good stuff that's happening. So I'm very excited for that.
Click like and subscribe.
Please do.
And if you don't have enough information on me, if you go to our website, read my bio, feel free to DM me and I will give you my first childhood back.
Just set aside some time to read that.
Right?
It's the world's greatest bio.
And if you want a weapon, read my bio. Because if that doesn't put anybody to sleep, then, man, you have no hope.
It's the sleep aid of 2024.
Amen. Amen, my friend. Well, I'm signing off from the free state of Florida here.
Have fun on the boat.
It is a boating day. Have yourself a great day to all of our friends out there that are listening. Have a great week, 2 weeks, and we'll see you very, very soon with some exciting stuff.
Yeah, we got some good guests lined up and taking it up a notch in 2025. It's all coming. Be safe and be good. America first.